Good evening, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Schiff Show. I'm Brian Schiff. I'll be your host tonight. And tonight's episode of what is a very unique type of program, an aviation education variety show. I haven't seen too many of its kind out there, but this is a unique kind of show. But tonight's is going to be a little bit unique because it's going to have twice as much the Schiff as most of our shows, and you'll see about that soon. Before we get started, just some housekeeping items, and I'd like to thank AVEMCO for being our sponsor, and this program is brought to you by them. Without the right insurance, that you could be SOL. Since 1961, no other insurance company connects you directly to an aviation underwriter, giving you more flexibility, personalized service, and easy-to-read policies customized for you and your flying. So give them a call. Or go online and check them out. But be sure to mention that you watch the Schiff Show and get a 5% discount as well. Tonight's episode also is eligible for Wings credit. Be sure to click on the Earn Wings credit on the main page of this episode, and that'll take you to log into your FAAsafety.gov account, take the quiz, and you'll automatically receive the Wings credit. This is the main page. On the main page for each course, you have the course resources, you have presenter information. This is where the Earn Your Wings credit link is, so click on that. You can also learn more about our sponsor, AVEMCO, and you can add, also we have a link to the Schiff Show archives that you can get to all the previous shows on there as well. On the main page where it shows all the archives, you can click a link to subscribe to the Schiff Show email to keep up to date on new topics, podcasts, archives, and all that. So be sure to subscribe to the email. That will get more interesting in time, I promise. Also tonight, be sure to participate in the chat. Just click on the chat bubble on the bottom of the page and then click join. Then click on guest and enter your name and click log in. Post your questions or comment and enjoy the chat. If you have questions, post them. If you chat with each other, just please be kind. You can also participate in the polls, but you need to be up to real time. So you need to click the button to snap to real time so that the polls actually match the time of the broadcast. Each episode will have the 5 segments that we have every night. We're going to review an accident. We'll talk about procedures or FAR AIM type stuff. Then we'll look at techniques for training, technology that can be used to avoid such an accident. And of course, at the end, we'll have fun with some quizzes, trivia questions at the quiz at the end, and look forward to some fun with that. Next year, we're gonna advance the gamification of the program and make it something fun that you're really going to want to participate in. Tonight's episode, we're going to talk about is the Colgan 3407 tragedy. It was a catalyst for some of the most significant safety improvements in modern U.S. aviation, and had a lasting impact on a lot of things like pilot training, qualifications, and airline safety culture as well. This program's focus on stall awareness is respectfully dedicated to the families and loved ones of those lost in the tragic accident of Colgan Air Flight 3407. Don't want their loss to go in vain. I think we should learn from it, which we have, and keep propagating the knowledge that comes from what we've learned from that accident. Also, just like to express my wishes to the families of those in Texas who are suffering due to the great loss due to the floods in mid-Texas right now. Our hearts and thoughts go out with you as well. Tonight's episode, I'd like to welcome my own flight instructor, mentor, and father. Without him, there wouldn't be me. So welcome, Dad. I promised to clean my room after the show.
You never kept that promise, not ever.
Well, I'll try tonight. I'll do my best. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. How about yourself?
Oh, I'm hanging in there. Looking forward to another program. And I'm honored to have you on here. It's, as I tell everybody who asks if I'm related to you, yes, first I ask if you owe them any money, just to clear that up beforehand. Anyway, I always tell them that, I wrote everything that's in your name. You're just the pen name.
Of course you did. Thank you. No, I get the checks.
I will say right here live on the air that you have some big shoes to fill, and to fall short of that is still to do pretty well. So I thank you for all the knowledge you've given me and helping me to pass it forward to everybody else.
You done did good, kid.
Well, I'm working on it. I'm working on it.
I'm proud of you.
Well, thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that. Like you said, you learn, you earn, and you return. And I'm kind of in that phase where I'm returning and giving back. And I truly am enjoying this. I hope that everybody who watches this gets something out of it. And while we have a very serious topic, sometimes we do have fun and make learning an enjoyable experience, but don't take that as to mean a lack of respect for the people who were lost in this accident, for sure. So, all right, well, we'll get with it. The 5 programs, the first one we're going to start with is an accident review. So let's get to that. We'll start with the study of, the study of recent accidents. I want you to caution you to beware of the internet rapid response teams. And as always, wait for the facts to emerge before drawing conclusions. This accident obviously was a long time ago. We've learned a lot. And until recently, this was the most recent accident since 2009 in the United States. I'm trying to advance the slide, sorry. I'm working on it. There we go. So if you don't know, this accident was a Bombardier for Q400, Bombardier. How do you say it? Bombardier or Bombardier?
Bombardier.
Oh, it was flying an ILS approach and stalled, spun, and crashed into a house during an ILS approach into Buffalo, New York, is what happened on that one. Like I said, until recently, this was the last deadly accident in the U.S. since 2009. It was the Q400 was operating as a Continental Airlines connection flight on February 12th, 2009. All 50 on board and 1 on the ground were killed, sadly. The accident sequence began with the aircraft on an approach in IMC getting vectored for the approach. They were in level flight before intercepting the glide slope. And with a certain power setting and speed all stabilized, they extended the gear and the flaps, but didn't add any power. And such as it is, the airspeed decayed, and that was no power was added, and the airspeed decayed, so that and it ended up in a stall, followed by an improper stall recovery. In fact, we're going to show you some of the animation created by the NTSB, and you're going to see if you wanted to enter a stall spin, this is exactly how you would do it. The crew also did not get a lot of rest, so they were very tired. It probably didn't help things. Both pilots commuted in very late for this flight. No hotel room or good night's sleep was obtained by either crew member. The captain was in flight ops all night, is getting up and using the computer. The first officer commuted in on a red-eye flight and, again, got in the morning a few hours before the flight, and she was sick as well. So, if you look at the I'm safe checklist, a lot of those self-analysis things were violated. And there have been some changes that have happened as a result of that because of that accident. We do a lot of things a little bit differently, and we'll talk about some of that as well. But certainly fatigue played a role. I don't think if these pilots were, I don't know, Dad, what do you think? If they were well rested, this accident could have still happened?
I think it still would have. Yeah.
So it didn't help. Maybe the recovery would have gone better, but I think sometimes when you're fatigued, and I'll talk about fatigue a little bit later, you might feel okay, but your reactions are going to be slower, and you're just not going to react to things that happen or go wrong, even though you might feel okay. So we're going to look at the animation, and I'm going to show this is created by the NTSB from the actual flight data recorder. I'll zoom in a little bit here, but before I play it, I just want to show you, this is where you can see the airspeed, altitude, and whether the stick shaker or pusher are on. Right here, you can see the flight control positions, the positions of aileron elevators, whether he's pushing or pulling, and then, of course, the rudder on the bottom. On the right, you can see the power, the condition levers, which is like the propeller control, and the flap position. And below that, you can see autopilot status and gear status, whether the gear is up or down. So
I think it's important for those watching who've never seen an animation like this before. They should understand that every piece of data taken from the flight data recorder is used to recreate this exactly the way it occurred. This is not an estimate. This is the way it really happened.
So file that away when you're watching this, that know that it has integrity. So I'll start the animation. Again, the NTSB made this. I'm starting it early enough that you can see and get a feel for what it looks like if you haven't seen this already. Many of you already have. You can also get a link to this in the course resources. I have a link to this animation, and I've also got a link in the course resources on the links page to the public docket for this accident, where you can see everything the NTSB used in determining the cause of this accident. There's a lot of information there. It's a great source for studying. But you can see as this aircraft is cruising along, it's maintaining about 170 knots at 2,300 feet. And you're going to see the approach clearance. You'll see some narrations on the top of the screen. The approach clearance will come soon. And you can see here flaps 5 is called for. What? Flaps 5, please. So there's a little communication issue there. Not a big deal. But here's the approach clearance. And they're cleared for the approach now. And you'll see the airplane bank and intercept the localizer. And so just keep an eye on this. Watch the speed. Watch the configuration. You'll see the addition of flaps. You'll see the condition levers go all the way forward. That's prop full forward for landing. And both of those add a lot of drag. You can see the shadow behind the yoke that shows the neutral position. That can help you realize which way the yoke or the control wheel is being moved, forward, aft, left, right, and of course the rudder down below. You can see we've sped up to about 180 something knots. We're still holding 2,300 feet. And they're going to start dirtying up, and you'll see the airspeed bleed off. And it's the recovery I want you to pay attention to. So gear down, flaps, glide, lokes alive. So they're going to intercept the localizer. We're going to put the gear down. And you can see the gear is now down. Airspeed's decaying now. 150, it's down to 160, 150. You can see it slowing down because they added drag, but no additional power was added, and we haven't started down the glide slope yet.
What's interesting about that particular event sequence is that both pilots ignored the fact that the airspeed was getting near stall. Both pilots, neither one of them noticed.
Right at one point, you'll see the cross-controlling, full right rudder, full left aileron when the airplane is nose high, rolling to the right.
What's interesting about this is that if you wanted to enter a stall spin sequence, this is exactly the way you would do it.
The time, maybe note this down, at 22:16:35, you'll notice the flight controls are totally crossed, and the aircraft is in a very nose-high attitude, very slow. There's flaps 5 again. There's the approach clearance, and you're going to notice the cross-controlling of the flight controls. Also notice again when we watch this, as the airspeed bleeds off, as soon as the stall warning occurs, we see an application of power, but not full power. And I don't know why. It certainly was not enough. The way we taught stall recoveries at the airlines was a little bit different back then also. They were taught to try to hold their altitude and power out of the stall. That training changed as a result of this accident. There goes the condition levers. Now the airspeed is going to start coming back. Gear down, condition levers up. Airspeed's bleeding back. And no more power. The power is still, look how far back it is. As soon as we get a stick shaker activation, you're going to see the power come up, but not all the way up. And so here we're trying to fight and recover. We don't add full power. We're afraid to do that. Nose is pretty high. If we can pause it right here.
And that's exactly the way it was.
Yeah, we just missed it. But just a second ago, there was full right rudder and left aileron. And right here, this is where it entered the spin. And a second ago, it had, again, the rudder was full to the right. Go watch it. I encourage you to do so. Like I said, this is how you would enter a spin. And he was pulling the whole time. I think this was recoverable. Dad, you and I know more about this than a lot of people because we investigated this as part of the litigation. And we went and flew the simulator. And certainly if you do a normal stall recovery by relaxing that back pressure, this airplane can very easily come out of that stall. What's
interesting is if they had attempted to recover the way we recover in a Cessna 172, they would have come out of it lower than up.
Yeah, exactly. So maybe it was the stall training. I think the big problem here was everybody knows the pilot screwed up. How do you get the pilot was incompetent. He failed numerous check rides. Everything after his private, he failed. He failed all his recurrence And the last one there is his ATP check ride. And the airline didn't really do a background check. They were hiring people over the phone. So the big question is not so much, why did this happen? Everybody knows why it happened. But how does an airline end up with a pilot who is incapable of recovering from a stall? So those are the kind of things that we fixed. If they'd have done a background check, they would have seen that every one of his 11 training simulator sessions where he did his initial training had the comment, too slow on approach speed control needs work and stall recovery needs work on every one of the 11 sim sessions. In any event, the issues involved with this, of course, are stall recovery, the training, tolerance of mediocrity, and we're at a point in our industry now where we do have a shortage of pilots. So the temptation is to hire as many as we can and maybe lower the standard. I haven't seen too much of that. It's obviously a fear when we have a need for pilots. And Colgan at the time had a very strong need to get the Q400 fleet going because they were losing a lot of money with their Saabs. So the sooner they could get that Q400 very efficient airplane flying, the sooner they could solve their financial problems. So whenever there's a shortage, when there's a demand for pilots, that becomes an issue. But even in the GA realm, the tolerance of mediocrity should not be there. I see it a lot. And when I give a flight review, I'm told I'm pretty tough, but they're thankful for it. Dad, I'm sure you're the same way. When you give flight reviews, it's just not worth tolerating mediocrity because it's very serious stuff we're talking about.
Oh, mediocrity kills. By the way, most of the passengers on that airplane thought they were going on a Continental Airlines flight. I mean, it was Continental. I wonder how many people would have bought tickets on a flight if they'd been told, you're going on Colgan Airlines.
Well, and that problem, because who knows what's Colgan Airlines? That problem still persists today. There are a lot of commuter airlines or regional airlines, I should say, that feed into the main line. And yes, it does say on the website you're buying a ticket on, or it's operated by such and such. But I just don't think people realize it. They're buying a ticket on Continental's website. Back then it was Continental. The tail of the aircraft is emblazoned with their logo. Yeah, you're right. It's not fair to the passengers. I agree. So fatigue, illness, sterile cockpit were also issues in this accident that were looked at, not necessarily causal though. There were many lessons learned as a result of this accident, especially the way pilots were hired. Pilot training and stall recovery was a big part of it. Fatigue management is taken very seriously now at the airlines. Pilot qualifications and experience, the records are better because we're keeping track of everything, and background checks are done. The safety culture is also improved with SMS, and if you see something and you say something, the SMS and the safety culture is more focused on safety. There were issues at Colgan where this pilot actually stalled during an approach, and a check airman was encouraged not to do anything or say anything about it because they would lose a captain. So that's part of the culture. The regulatory and industry reforms, we'll look at some of that, but also a lot of technical and procedural improvements came as a result of this accident as well. So let's just take a look at the procedures involved. And when I say that, I mean the Airman's and Aeronautical, I'm dating myself. Do you ever say Airman's Information Manual on accident? Aeronautical Information Manual and the FARs and the training books and what the FAA basically wants us to teach. We'll cover those aspects of this. And stalls were back, they began pretty early. In the first day of aviation, in the very beginning, Wilbur actually pulled up too sharply and stalled the airplane. Is why he didn't continue flying longer than he did.
He would have gone an extra 10 feet.
Yeah, he would have got an extra 10 feet. Exactly. Yeah, I didn't know that part. Our regs for student pilots, they are required to, do stall entries from various flight attitudes and power combinations with recovery initiated at the first indication of a stall and recovery from a full stall. So student pilots, before they solo, are required to do that. Recreational pilots, again, they've got to do slow flight installs. Private pilots, slow flight installs. Commercial pilots, again, slow flight installs. It's all a part of certification of pilots. Now you get to ATP, and now it's about stall prevention. So you want to prevent the stall. You should theoretically know how to recover by that point. But at this point, we want to actually prevent it. We want to keep it from ever getting there in the first place. When we get to flight instructors, it gets very different and very important. Now we introduce spins to the whole scenario. And the FAA has not required spin training for private pilots since 1949. And most airplanes that are made since then are not even approved for spins. Modern training does include stall avoidance. And the theory is if you don't stall, you won't spin. But before 1949, there were more people being killed by learning how to recover from a spin than were being saved by it. And I'm quoting the man on the screen here from writing that in the All About Stalls chapter of his Proficient Pilot book, which I highly recommend. It's a great read. Links to that article.
I recommend it too.
You recommend it?
Yeah.
Where did you learn all that stuff?
From you.
Yeah, right. Right. So the CFIs also have to have a spin endorsement citing that they have instructional proficiency. Do you know what that means?
No, I have no idea what that means. And I don't know
I have an idea.
FAA does either.
Yeah, right. And I think that's one of the big problems here is that we're checking a box. We're going to go do some spins, check the box, and there are probably about as many ways of analyzing instructional proficiency as there are instructors. I went to AI for the answer, and the breakdown phrase, instructional proficiency, it says the applicant must be able to explain, demonstrate, and teach the concepts and maneuvers to others. Logical. And this includes clear communications, providing accurate demonstrations, and correcting student errors. So I think that's a good start if you're giving someone a spin sign-off.
There's a little known secret that goes on with flight instructors. As you know, not everybody else knows, is that to become a flight instructor, you have to have logged in your logbook a spin, that you've done a spin. Wahoo! You know, most of the people who instruct in these airplanes to do spins like that are as fearful or apprehensive about them as the people who have to receive the instruction. So as a result, and this is from a long study that I made in talking confidentially to a lot of instructors, many instructors simply have their logbooks signed off. Everybody agrees to us, you know, here you go, you've done your spin, and that's that.
And most of the time,
and they've never really done one.
Right, and that's, you know, so propagates the fear. You know, you've never done one, and you don't know how. So they are afraid of doing them. The endorsement,
the examiner who is giving the flight instructor his check ride doesn't have to accept the logbook entry. He can say, "I want to see a spin," but do you think they want to do one? No. So as a result, nobody does the spin.
So everybody's avoiding the kind of training that, you know, that as a Citabria owner, that's a normal descent for me. I love doing spins. That's how I get down. And it's just really not a big deal if you know what you're doing. Same with stalls. So many are afraid, just as afraid as their students.
Well, I think it's the word spin makes pilots very apprehensive. In reality, it's kind of a fun maneuver. I love it. And most people who learn to do spins properly enjoy them. There's nothing frightening about them, not when you do them properly.
You taught me as an emergency maneuver to get below a cloud deck in the Citabria with no flight instruments. It's actually quite a stable maneuver because you know the attitude is going to stay how it is until you recover. So, you know, we had discussed that as a matter of conversation. You know, you could just spin through the cloud deck as long as you had enough altitude in the bases.
As long as the cloud deck is not down to the ground.
Right, of course. Got to have the altitude to recover and know there's nothing down there to hit, of course. But it's academic. It's an academic conversation. It's a rather stable maneuver. So they have to demonstrate proficiency. Instructors do in awareness, spin entries, spin, and spin recovery procedures. The spin endorsement will count. The examiner can count the spin endorsement, like Dad said, except, and this is the big thing that I think you need to be aware of. If you have a retest as a result of deficiencies or knowledge of stall awareness, spin entry, spins, or spin recovery, then the examiner must test the person in an airplane on spin entry, spins, spin recovery, and instructional procedures in the airplane. Yeah. So now, does the examiner have discretion? Yeah, obviously. Do you think it happens? And what if you don't have an airplane that's capable of that? You have to provide one, an aircraft that's capable of performing all the maneuvers required of that check ride. How often do you think this happens? Right.
Not very.
Enough on spins. What's a stall? It's when the engine quits, right? I think that's what the non-aviation people think. They think of a stall, they think the engine is stalling. But basically the stall is defined, it's the turbulent separation of air from the wing that occurs when the critical angle of attack is exceeded. And that can happen at any attitude and any airspeed. We all know that because it's a written test question. It's a mantra. No matter where the airplane is pointing, exceeding the angle between where the airplane is moving and the chord line of the wing is the angle of attack, the critical angle of attack that will cause the airplane to stall. And of course, the only way to recover is to reduce that angle. I like to teach it like, why is this happening? I'm asking the air to make too sharp a turn around the wing. When I get a high angle of attack, I'm making the, and we'll show
high angle of attack.
A high angle of attack.
I hate that. You'll see that in all of the FAA books. High angle of attack. There's no such thing as a high angle, and maybe that's what misleads a lot of pilots. Large angles of attack, not high ones.
You've been correcting me on that all my life, and I looked it up, and you're right. In the FAA handbooks, it says high angle of attack, and one pictures a high angle, but you could have a nose down and still have a pretty high angle of attack.
Large angle.
Yeah, that's what I said, large angle. These are difficult habits to break. But asking a runner to round a corner, that's why these track and field tracks are oval like that. That's why they're curved. Could you imagine if you had a square or a rectangle? What would happen when the runners were trying to take that turn at full speed? They'd stumble. There's your critical angle, and there's your stall. So it's kind of similar to that. So think about the airflow. Think about what you're asking it to do over the wing. What causes it? It only occurs, again, for one reason. The pilot has tried to fly the wing at too high an angle, too large. Well, here, let me fix this slide. At too large an angle. An angle cannot be high. It's large. So the only way to recover from that is to reduce the angle of attack. It's that simple. So let's study the equation. Obviously, I don't want to do that. I couldn't begin to do that. But again, the mantra, any altitude, any airspeed, and that airspeed can change. And all this equation is really showing you is that the W, the gross weight, if you put load on the airplane, is that not the gross weight changing? Yeah, so that's this. You can see if the gross weight changes as a result of the load on the airplane, then the speed is going to change. The speed at which the airplane will stall, the speed at which it will reach that large critical angle of attack. So again, that speed on our airspeed indicator, a lot of people think, and do you think that's doing us a disservice, having a bottom of a green and the bottom of the white arc?
Yeah, unfortunately, everyone thinks that's the stall speed, flaps up and flaps down. It is only at 1G and only at the maximum allowable gross weight of the airplane. Under all other conditions, the stall speeds are not what's shown on that gauge.
Right, and I think that's good information as long as you know that, and you know that it's going to be higher under some circumstances. But wouldn't it be nice if we had an airspeed indicator that would show us the actual stall speed based on the current conditions? Didn't you came up with one of those, and I think it was brilliant.
I invented what was called the smart airspeed indicator, and I presented it to the FAA, but they didn't like it because they didn't invent it. But basically what it is an airspeed indicator that has two needles. One shows your airspeed, and the other shows your stall speed at any given time. And so the difference between the two needles is your stall speed margin. I think it's a great way to have stall speed presented, because we're always looking at the airspeed indicator. And if you knew what the difference was between stall speed and actual speed, you'd be far better off and a lot safer, I think.
I agree. And in a way, we have that with some glass cockpit configurations. Not all, but some glass cockpit configurations will have a red tape that indicates your stall speed, which will change with changing factors as well. This airspeed indicator would look kind of like this as the airplane was flying. And when the two meet, you can see, I'm going to go ahead and zoom in on this. As the two meet, that's when you get the stall indication. But as long as there's a big pie-shaped difference between the two, the bigger that triangle, the bigger you excess airspeed you have for that configuration. There's the airspeed meeting the stall speed, and so you get a stall warning.
Yeah, it's nice to know that if the two needles aren't touching, you're not going to stall.
Right. So it's showing you at what airspeed in that configuration will correlate with the critical angle of attack. It's not really the airspeed that's causing it to stall. It's correlating to the angle of attack at that point. So that's kind of cool. I think that, something like that in glass cockpits is nice, but the round dials, they could have easily done that. Know that Advisory 6167 is out there. It's in the course resources, gives a lot of information about stalls and stall recovery and where the problems are. And the substance of that is that the takeaway for me was that it tells you that most of the stall accidents are happening when the pilot is distracted, when the pilot's not aware that it's about to happen. And I think the training environment is generally not where accidental stall spin accidents happen, but out there in real life, just like the Colgan accident, right? I mean, I think they were distracted. They had to have been, but there was also a weakness. So we'll also take a look at what the ACS says, because there are requirements for testing pilots. All pilots are tested on this. So the effects of fatigue on performance is significant. It's become, and we've learned from this accident, so much so that we've got new regulations, FAR 117, on the fatigue and rest rules. Crews have to declare themselves fit for duty before every flight. And it's important to ask yourself before every flight, are you really fit for duty? And here's the thing. When I teach a seminar, we talk about fatigue, and I ask, if you only got 4 hours of sleep last night, would you fly this flight? Or 4 hours of sleep in the last 2 nights, would you fly it? If you got 4 hours of sleep, would you do this webinar? All of us sitting here comfortably in our air-conditioned rooms will say, no, I wouldn't do that. But think about yourself in the hangar. You're ready to go. Your family was all ready to go on this trip, and you're going to push yourself. You're going to have this continuation bias like nothing else, and you've all done it. We've all done it. Just think back to how you answered that question, here in the webinar about when you shouldn't fly, because you're just not going to react at the same speed. And you'll probably feel just fine. You'll talk yourself into it. I feel okay. I didn't get much sleep, but I feel okay. Well, you're not going to notice things as quickly, and you're not going to react as quickly. And you're just not going to perform as well. Your performance is significantly degraded when you're behind on sleep. And you can't just go take a nap and catch up. Sleep loss is cumulative. But the important thing here is that at the airline, we now have fatigue risk management, which is a long class, and it's very in-depth. And I've learned quite a bit on how to manage sleep and manage rest. And it's being taken very seriously. So I think a lot of us don't manage our rest properly.
Right? On the airline, there are 2 people in the cockpit. So if one needs to close his eyes for a few minutes, you can do that and get away with it, as long as the other guy stays awake. But in a light airplane, of course, you're the only pilot in most cases. And if you start to fall asleep, there's no one there to back you up.
Yeah, and there are avionics out there that are pretty cool. Like if they don't sense you touching them in so many minutes, they'll beep at you or do something. And I think that's a good idea. But more importantly is to really do a good, solid self-assessment. Sometimes rather than fly yourself there, you should probably just get on an airliner or find someone else to fly.
Or just go to a motel.
Yeah, go get some sleep. Exactly. It's not worth. Is it worth it if you tried to get there and crashed? Of course not. So let's look at training. The training aspects. So here is a classic stall spin accident on short final that someone was actually able to get a video of. Now, I want to caution you, if you're faint of heart, this is difficult to watch. Classic. Got too slow, increased his angle of attack past the critical. That's fun. I know you've probably seen that. It's kind of went viral on the web. But in any event, what is angle of attack? We keep talking about this angle, and I just want to review that again. What is it? Angle between the relative wind equal to magnitude opposite direction of the airplane and the chord line, which is the imaginary line from the trailing edge to the front of the wing, and that's your angle of attack. Now, you can actually have that angle can be measured in any direction at all. So like if the airplane is gliding, right, there's what it would look like. Anytime you're in a steep dive and you do a sharp pull-up, you're going really fast and pointed down and can get a stall or exceed the critical angle of attack. So any attitude. I think now I want to ask you this, Dad, because I think we started talking about this, never finished it. I like to teach that if you find yourself pulling on the control wheel, that should be like one of the first signs of a stall. Can you think of a scenario where you could stall the airplane where you're not pulling?
No.
So I think
that's simple. Yeah, as long as you're aware of the force you're applying.
Right. And you may be reacting to something in a knee-jerk fashion, but I think it's important to know that when you're flying, you pull. If you find yourself pulling in any kind of configuration, you probably are setting yourself up. That, I think, is the first indication of a stall.
And the harder you're pulling, the more desperate you might become.
Right. Now, the wind tunnel, I promise you, this is a kind of a cool video that this shows that, during a stall, the wing is still flying. And most training aircraft, the wing actually stalls toward the root. It's designed that way. It keeps you flying out at the wingtips and keeps some aileron control. But here's an airfoil with smoke going past it in a wind tunnel. And you can very clearly see when the smoke is asked to make too sharp a turn, it stumbles. And it's an easy fix. There's a stall. Easy fix.
No airflow over that wing at all.
Right. But it could be still mushing and falling at a high rate of descent with the nose high. And that's like the Air France that went down in the ocean, which probably looked a lot like that. Right.
Yeah, this was taken at the smoke tunnel at the Northrop Institute of Technology. I said I'd give them credit.
Yeah. Thank you for doing that. The ACS requires that, for maneuvering during slow flight, just be aware that there are some notes and safety notes in the appendix. And I think the biggest thing is warning pilots to not get into situations where when they get distracted, they could get into a stall situation. The power off stalls are also talked about in the ACS. We have to do those. Here's the skill that are required. I basically put my own checklist together for my students when we're doing maneuvers, and basically steps 1 and 2 are for every maneuver. Plan to recover from the maneuver above 1,500 feet, 3,000 in a twin if it's a twin, and then clear the area for other traffic, make clearing turns left and right. But for the approach to landing stall, I basically just do it like this. Slow down, trim to 65 knots. And like in a 172, that's what this checklist is for. Get to full flaps, level flight, get the carb heat on, pull the power to idle, and begin a normal glide at 65. This is like an approach to landing stall. Someone taught me how to do this, pretty sure. Long time ago.
Very long time ago.
So you're in this normal glide configuration and just simulate that, okay, I'm either engine out or whatever, and I'm trying to make it to my field. It looks like I'm going to run a little short, so I'm going to pull back and try and stretch my glide, which we all know can't work. Maintain directional control with the rudder, and call out. It actually says in the ACS to call out the impending stall warnings So stall warning and buffet, you should call those out and then recover by adding full throttle, relax the back pressure, and get the carb heat off. Full power and relaxing the back pressure are both adding to lower the angle of attack. Then bring the flaps up in 10 degree to 10 degrees in small increments, and don't bring that last notch up until you're climbing with a positive rate at VX or VY, whichever is more appropriate. And when you have that, then bring the last of the flaps up and then retrim it. So just a little technique, just a way to do maneuvers. I like to spell it out very simply, and if you're an instructor, try to do that. If you're a student, find a way to do this regularly every way. It's okay to have a checklist for your maneuvers. Make something that works. The ACS also requires that pilots do power-on stalls. If you're flying something with a lot of power, don't use full power for the power-on stalls. The ACS only requires you to use 65% power minimum. So calculate where 65% power is. You'll have a much more tame maneuver in that. So you ever fly with students who don't, as soon as you say stalls, they start shaking?
Yeah. A lot of people are very have anxiety about doing stalls. So I always teach them by making approaches to stalls. Don't really get into them. And they see they're getting close, and I say, now here's how you recover. Lower the nose just a little bit, and you're out of it. And you just nibble into the stall gradually, a little bit at a time. And people get over it pretty quickly, surprisingly so.
And I think that's important for an instructor to put a student at ease. And that's a good technique. Ease into it with something very tame, just nibble at it. And they can see it's really no big deal. It's not like the airplane just starts falling. I think that's the fear, the impression that they get. But a lot of instructors also have that same fear, and they're passing it on to their students. And that's not good.
There are some instructors who teach the stall from, they may do a turning full power stall to begin with. And the airplane almost flips over on its back. And that scares the hell out of a student. That's not the way to, they can't build confidence that way. So you have to start out easily, slowly.
Right. Another maneuver that I got from you, and a lot of people do this, a great exercise is the deep oscillation stall that you describe in this video, your spins video. I think there's a link to that also in the course resources. But
one exercise
basically,
I recommend
here it is.
Practicing
Who's that young guy?
control in deep oscillation stalls. This consists of entering a conventional power-off, wings-level stall. But instead of recovering,
what you do here is pull the stick all the way back.
And the ailerons.
They have audio.
Just start the stall.
Will oscillate about
and
all
keep
three
the
axes
ailerons
and may
neutral.
A tendency to
and
spin
as the airplane starts to stall, it may go a little left or a little right. Use your rudders aggressively to keep the airplane going straight ahead. And the airplane is constantly stalling and recovering and stalling and recovering, but never really goes anywhere. And it does build a great deal of confidence.
Some people call it the falling leaf maneuver because you're just kind of falling like a falling leaf. But falling is a little bit more frightening. You're still flying along. It's just not flying very far forward for how far down you're going.
I hate to say this because it scares people if I say so, but doing this maneuver is really entering and recovering from a series of incipient spins. You just never get to move in the direction of a spin very far because you're recovering as you go along.
Right. The fantastic part about it is it takes a lot of the intimidation away about, okay, I can recover. I don't even need to add power. If you're up at altitude, just ease off, recover it, or holding it in the stall. You see, it's not something you're going to lose control out of as long as you keep your feet alive and keep your wings level with your feet. Throw some aileron in there, and now you're going to ask for a spin.
You don't want to do that. It's a confidence building maneuver. Most of my students love to do it. You did.
Right. I did. I enjoyed it. I still do it with all my students. If someone comes to me afraid of stalls, we're going to do these until they feel like it's so boring. It's no big deal. So know that a lot of the mistakes are published in the Airplane Flying Handbook. They've got great sections. Every maneuver has a list of the common errors that people make, one of which is trying to use aileron to right the wings, which we saw in the Colgan as well. If you take that low wing and try to lift it by dropping the angle of attack, remember I said that or by increasing the angle of attack, when you drop the aileron, the chord line going from the trailing edge of the wing to the leading edge of the wing has now just changed your angle by adding that down aileron. You've just increased the angle of attack, putting it closer into the stall or into the stall. If it was close to the stall, now it's in the stall. You've just stalled it by trying to lift that wing with the aileron. So go look at the airplane flying handbook. Look at the common errors, because I think you'll see that maybe you've done one or two of them. Airline training change. The way the airlines are teaching stall recovery was a little bit different. Like I said before, we try to power out. They teach you to power out of it. Now you're not required to hold altitude. It's okay to lose altitude when you're recovering from a stall. It gets a little bit more aggressive recovery in there. And it depends on the airplane whether or not it can power out of a stall.
Well, one way to always recover from any stall is to go from a large angle of attack to a small one. How do you do that?
Quit pulling. Odds are you're pulling if that happens. Yeah. Or if you're out of trim, you could be pushing and still having the, yoke come against you. But the idea is to reduce your angle of attack. Exactly. The advisory circular now says that the focus on recovery is to immediately reduce angle of attack, control your roll after reducing angle of attack. You don't want to try to control roll while you're still right up there in a stall, and you'll put one wing more into the stall, deeper into the stall. Of course, that's how you get into a spin, one way. Manage your thrust, and then return to the desired flight path. So stall indications, very important to know when you're approaching a stall. The flight controls get mushy. It's like this power steering feels way loose. It gets quiet. The control wheel's in your lap. You're pulling. Then the stall warning or buffeting, the nose drops. A rapid rate of descent. You might be in a stall like Air France was and not even realize it because it's somewhat stable and you're just sinking. So a high rate of descent is another indication as well. Why does the nose drop? The nose dropping on some airplanes.
You're asking me?
Well, yeah, I got this from your book.
It has something to do with the airflow across the tail.
Yeah. The tail's purpose is to, with the center of gravity or forward of the CG, it creates a nose down moment. So the tail's purpose is for combating that and stabilizing it. Take that away.
Is always pushing down on the tail.
Right.
If you reduce that airflow across the top of the tail, the tail goes up and the nose goes down.
Right. So the tail's purpose is to, keep your nose from dropping. So yeah, it's pushing down. I think that's one of the reasons why I think you can cruise faster if you put your weight in the back, because you're helping the tail hold the nose up, helping hold the tail down so it doesn't have to create as much downforce.
Not too far back.
Not too far back, yeah. Don't have someone sit back there on your stabilizer. I don't think that would be good. Straddle the empennage back there. But yeah, that's the theory behind that. So there's some technology out there to help us avoid stalls. And, it's been out there a long time. It's required in all airplanes, these stall warnings. When you have the air hitting the leading edge of the wing at a certain angle, that's the angle of attack, the critical angle of attack. It doesn't matter the speed or which way the nose is pointing. These indications will still happen. And remember, this happens above stall. They're supposed to be like about, 10% above stall? Something like that.
Close,
just because the warning goes off doesn't mean you're actually stalling. And in the Colgan accident, the recovery was initiated, and I shouldn't say recovery. No recovery was initiated. But the reaction happened before the stall ever happened. The only thing that happened when he added the power up appropriately and pulled back on the yoke inappropriately was a stick shaker. The airplane actually wasn't stalled yet.
You owned an airplane once that did not have a stall warning indicator. I think it was called an Avianca Champion.
Right.
And you got to really had to learn how to recognize when the airplane was about to stall without any assistance. No horns, no gauges, no nothing. You had to feel when that airplane was going to stall.
I'm pretty sure that Champ was always just about to stall. At least it seemed like it. Yeah, that's true. And I think that as far as, I lost my train of thought. I had a comment about the accident. A lot of people think that was because of icing. They were in icing conditions.
Yeah, but it had nothing at all to do with the accident. Wasn't enough to create a problem for them.
Right. It's just coincidental that they were in icing conditions and that the icing, so there's an ice switch on that. If they're in icing conditions, they throw that switch. And all that switch does is change the bias on the stall warning to give you a stall warning at a higher airspeed in the event that you are experiencing icing conditions.
By the way, when you lose your train of thought, is that my clue to go home? I can leave now?
Yeah, you're dismissed.
Or did you get back on the train?
I got back on the train. The train turned back towards me. This happens all the time. All it takes is a squirrel. It happens a lot. Probably more as I'm approaching your age.
Yeah, tell me about it.
So right now there's the angle of attack indicators give a pilot a better situational awareness about, like, okay, if that's really what's causing the stall, why not have an angle of attack indicator to show you where you are on that, to show you your stall margin, the awareness.
I can give you 3 reasons not to.
What's that?
I can give you 3 reasons why they're not so good on light general aviation airplanes. Well, the first is they have to be very well calibrated, and they're often not that well calibrated. Secondly, is each manufacturer has its own design, and they look different, and you never know which one is telling you what. And the third reason is that it's another gauge to look at. Well, you're already looking at the airspeed indicator. Why not just use that?
Right.
If you have one that showed the stall speed as well. To have another gauge to look at just complicates the issue, I think.
And if you're reliant on that, then I think you're missing a fundamental skill of aviating, of being able to recognize a stall, being comfortable with approaching and recovering from it.
Just like the AVEMCO.
Yeah, exactly. But I know that there's an industry group out there that, is evaluating, the FAA along with the General Aviation Joint Steering Committee is promoting the use of angle of attack right now and reducing the occurrence of stall spin accidents. I don't know. It'd be interesting to see if those really make a difference. I mean, I'm sure there are airplanes with an angle of attack indicator that has crashed as a result of a stall spin accident. So I don't know if that's really the answer. You have the information you need is all right there. And if you fly the airplane properly, you shouldn't stall it. We do have indications in the airplane. We also have some automation that helps us avoid stalls or let us know a little bit differently than a lot of GA airplanes. One, of course, is the stick shaker. There's a little motor attached to the control wheel that vibrates at 10% above stall that kind of warns. Another one is the stick pusher. Some airplanes have a pusher that when you get close to a stall, it will push. Now, that can be overridden. The Colgan aircraft had a stick pusher and a stick shaker, and it still crashed from a stall spin accident. Explain that.
They were pulling back very hard.
Right.
They really wanted to stall that airplane.
Yeah, I think if you were to look at the data, and it's all in the docket, you would see that the pilot was pulling at least 40 pounds of pressure the entire maneuver, all the way from stick shaker to contact with the ground.
Well, don't you always pull the nose up when the nose is down?
Depends on which way is closer. Yeah. I never
really,
say always or never.
He really didn't seem to have an idea about how to avoid and recover from stalls.
Right. There was lacking a fundamental, and that was evident in the training. I think if pilots are afraid of stalls, that needs to be worked out. It needs to be fixed. A lot of the new airplanes, like the Airbus that I fly, has an automatic envelope protection. This would have prevented the Colgan accident, probably. I mean, you said always earlier, and I generally don't say the words always or never. But in normal law, the airplane won't exceed a bank angle or a certain pitch. It won't exceed a certain load limit. It's going to keep you from doing that. It won't go too fast or too slow. There's another law called alternate law, and you have load and speed protection, but no pitch or bank. You can keep pitching or rolling as far as you want. And then there's, of course, direct law when the computers don't work and you have direct input to the flight controls. The new Boeings have the same thing.
You really fly a bus?
I watch it fly itself. I program it. It does a beautiful job. I honestly don't know what it needs me for. I think I know what it needs me so the passengers will feel comfortable getting on the airplane. So we're running a little late, and that's fine because we're almost to the part where we do our quiz, and we'll do that shortly. There's always too much good stuff to talk about. The 787 also has some automatic envelope protection as well. The newer Boeings have this, so I just wanted to point that out as well. But they do have a direct mode. GA has the GFC 500 and several other autopilots that are very cool because it has different kind of protections as well. It will lower the nose. It will, if you're too slow, it'll raise the nose if you're about to overspeed it. It has electronic stability protection when the autopilot is not even engaged. It will nudge the flight controls if your pitch exceeds, I think it's up 20 and down 15 degrees, or if your roll exceeds a 45-degree bank, or if you're at a high airspeed, like you're exceeding VNE, or low airspeed, you're below, I think it's VX plus something, right around VX.
Pretty soon you won't need a pilot.
Watch your mouth. I just need 7 more years. And I'm out of here. It's got that handy blue button there, the level button, which is a dedicated button that instantly commands the autopilot to bring the aircraft to straight and level flight, overriding whatever current mode the autopilot's in. Now, if you have an airplane like that, I was giving a flight review to somebody. Actually, we were doing commercial maneuvers in the Cessna 300, the former, what was that before the Cessna had it? The Columbia 300?
I think so.
Yeah. Anyway, he had the GFC 500 autopilot. And I said, have you ever tried the level button? He said, no, I never done it. I said, let's try it. So I gave him an unusual attitude. I said, all right, look up and hit the level button. We were in a right bank, and as soon as he hit the level button, it did an aileron hard over further to the right. And that was not what it was supposed to do. So if you have one of these, I
thought I was going to do a snap roll.
It felt like it.
I've heard that happening.
You have?
Yep.
Well, I recommend you, with your hand on the control wheel, testing that button so you have confidence with that kind of automation. At the airlines, we have to do what we call flight confidence checks. The airplane will land itself. That's awfully puckering thing. You flew one that will do that too. Have you ever touched down without seeing the ground?
Sure. In the 1011? Yes, sir.
Yeah.
We did.
Yeah. And so before we're allowed to do that, we have to do regularly flight confidence checks. So we're confident, and the computers are proving themselves that they will, in fact, do what they're supposed to do. So if you have this automation, test it from time to time.
In fact, in the 1011, we could land with virtually zero visibility. The only reason that we couldn't go quite that low is you couldn't taxi to the gate once you're on the ground. Couldn't see where you were going.
I remember landing in Paris one time, and we couldn't get to the gate. We had to get a tug after a Cat 3 landing. Now the Airbus can land in practically zero. I think it's like 500 feet. There are cases where you can go down to 300 feet. And so you really aren't going to see anything until the nose comes down, and then you start seeing the center lines. There are no visual cues required. The airplane will we are electronically verifying that the airplane is where it should be and that all the redundant systems are working. It's fascinating. It's kind of fun.
I enjoyed it.
That brings us to the game time. And I know we're going to have some fun here. And as you guys know, the questions come from one of the several Bibles I have. A
great book.
1,000 things you thought you knew about aviation. It's a lot of fun. This is a compilation of all your AOPA test pilot questions, right?
Well, the first 1,000 of them, we're up to almost 3,000 now.
Oh my, are you kidding me? So is there a sequel coming out?
I don't know.
We should see that soon, but there's some fantastically fun questions in there. So let's go ahead and take a look at that. Here comes the first question. I'll let, again, thanks to this guy named Barry Schiff, the half of the Schiff show for tonight. I will let you read the questions and I'll read the answers.
Okay.
Here's the first one.
This is one that's really fun. Before takeoff, a pilot lights a candle. Just put a candle, and he puts it on top of the glare shield. And while accelerating for takeoff, assuming all the vents are closed, during the takeoff, the pilot will note that the flame of the candle will lean forward during the takeoff, will lean rearward, or lean right, or lean left. The flame is going to lean one way or the other. Which way?
So we got to figure out P factor and
gyroscopic precession.
Right. Now, did you actually try this?
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah, I did.
You lit a candle in the airplane?
No, I did it in the car.
You did it in the car? I wanted to try
do the same thing in the airplane.
I wanted to try it and get a video. If someone goes and tries this, I don't have the guts to do it in my airplane, and I'm not recommending anybody else do either. But go try it in your car, get a video, and send it to me. The answer is A is correct. The flame is buoyant and rises opposite the force of gravity. Just like you see when there's no acceleration, it's going straight up. So during acceleration, the apparent force of gravity is from below and behind, which is why a pilot is pressed into both the seat bottom and the seat back of their seat. So the flame, therefore, can both rises and leans forward. You can observe this phenomenon in your car. Go try it in your car. And if you get it, send me the video. I'd love to see that. So it leans forward. Pretty wild. Yep. Never would have thought that.
Absolutely does. You can make some money on that one.
I'm going to try that.
Question 2. Now, structural icing on the leading edges of a horizontal stabilizer typically will cause the airplane to pitch down, pitch up, roll left, or pitch up and roll. What will it do when you get structural icing on the leading edges of a horizontal stabilizer?
Interesting fact, the Airbus has no de-icing or anti-icing on the horizontal stabilizer. Don't know why. Apparently it's just incapable of picking up ice on the stabilizer.
Very interesting.
It is. I don't know why it has that. So,
wait a minute. Da, 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 da. Aren't we supposed to do that, waiting for the answer?
Yeah, but you got to finish it.
You're supposed to do the answer.
Right. So the answer is A, it will pitch down. So remember, like we said, the normal function of a conventional horizontal stabilizer is to produce a downward force that prevents the nose from dropping. Ice interferes with the function of that. So it will pitch down. All right, question 3.
Why does a typical general aviation airplane, if you don't know this by now, why does a typical general aviation airplane pitch down during a stall entry?
If anybody misses this, you weren't sleeping.
Airplanes dive when they stall. B, because the wings aren't generating any lift. C, I can't see. Oh, there it is. The tail's downforce loses effectiveness. Or D, the increased downforce created by the tail.
I think everybody's got to know that. But before I show the answer, is that your Aranca Champ up there in the picture? I think that's you flying it.
Oh, that is my Champ, yeah.
Yeah.
Was my Champ, I should say.
Yeah. And you went and flew that. How many years after you soloed in that Champ, and then you went and flew it on its what anniversary?
On my 80th anniversary, 80th birthday. I flew the exact same airplane that I soloed when I was 16 years old. Not the same make and model, the same identical airplane, N81881.
And didn't you actually take up the same passenger?
My first passenger was my girlfriend in high school, and she came down on my 80th birthday to join me for another flight.
That's very cool.
It was great fun.
Well, I think everybody's got to know that the answer here is C, the tail's downforce loses effectiveness. I think we beat that up earlier. Downward aerodynamic force on the tail normally holds the tail down and the nose up. So during the stall, no longer flows smoothly from the inboard sections of the wing to the tail, and this causes the a conventional tail to lose its effectiveness. So, yeah. All right, question 4.
Okay, what is the easiest way to fly an airplane at a constant angle of attack? Hold the nose on the horizon. That's A. B, don't move the elevator. C, don't do a thing. Or D, maintain a constant power setting. Which of those 4 things enable you to fly an airplane at a constant angle of attack?
When would you ever want to fly at a constant angle of attack?
That's not the point, Brian. You always do that. You try to take away the fun of the question.
Oh, I'm trying to think of the last time I thought, gosh, if I could only hold the constant angle of attack.
Well, if you do, you'll know you won't be stalling.
That's a good point.
Hey, that's a good thing.
Okay, that's fair. So, nose on the horizon, don't move the elevator, don't do anything, or maintain a constant power setting. The answer is to fly a constant angle of attack. Don't do anything. C.
Don't do a thing. The airplane will hold it all by itself.
Right. It's trimmed for that, right? In smooth air, it's going to seek automatically its trimmed airspeed and angle of attack, right? If you do nothing. All right, our last and final question, and we're going to call it a night. Again, sorry we've kept you so long, but we just love you so much. Here is the last question. Go for it.
True or false? It is possible to fly any light airplane such that it cannot be made to stall at any airspeed. True or false? It's possible to fly a light airplane in a way that it cannot be made to stall at any airspeed.
So I had trouble understanding this one, but if I'm to make it clear, that means I could fly it at 10 knots or 20 knots, and you're saying it won't stall?
Yes. In other words, name any airspeed, and I can fly it at that airspeed without stalling. And that's possible. How do you do it?
It is possible. So the answer would be?
It would be
true. Yeah. So I guess just as stall speed increases with an increase in loading, G loading, it decreases with a decrease in G loading. So at 0 Gs, I guess that's what we're talking about here, right?
Yep. The airplane has no stalling speed.
That's amazing.
Can't stall.
Yeah. That's so if you're doing aerobatics, I think a lot of aerobatic pilots are very much aware of that. So before we go, are there any final thoughts about stalls and spins you'd like to tell anybody? By the way, this is a picture of both of us in 1968, a couple of years ago.
Yeah. You were 1 and I was 30.
This was me at the beginning phases of mimicking the old man.
Yeah.
Any final thoughts?
Yeah. Don't stall.
Yeah.
Don't stall inadvertently anyway. And if you do, don't do it anywhere near the ground. And that means be particularly careful when you're maneuvering for landing. That is the most likely time one can get into a difficult situation. If you stall when low.
Yeah. And sterile cockpit, I think, is important there because you're less likely to be distracted, which that advisory circular says is one of the most common times that this happens. And if you overshoot,
is a sterile cockpit when you wash it out or something? It's clean.
It's when the pilots can't have kids.
What's a sterile cockpit?
It's no talking, unless it's necessary for the safety of flight. And
sterile of babbling.
Sterile of babbling, just necessary communications only. If you have another pilot or family or passengers, they might be tempted to talk, and it's good to brief them ahead of time. Hey, during this approach phase, let's try to keep it quiet. Unless you see an airplane or something that you think is a safety issue, let's not just talk too much during that phase of flight. That's, I think at TWA, didn't they say +3, -8? The 3 minutes after takeoff and 8 minutes before landing is a good time.
That's when most accidents occur.
It is. That's why I spend as little time as I can in those 3 minutes. So actually, before I show that, the last thing I would like to say is that if you are intimidated by stalls, you have a problem and you're, I would say, dangerous. You need to get that fixed. Please seek out an instructor. Maybe I would recommend going to a flight school that teaches aerobatics. You need to attack this fear and realize that it's not something to be afraid of. It's something you need to get a hold of. And intimidation of stalls is becoming more and more rampant. We're hearing that from our designated examiners. At NAFI, we're hearing from some horrific check rides, CFI check rides especially. People are showing up for their CFI check rides afraid of stalls. If this is you, please, please, please seek out some flight instruction and solve that problem. And remember, the most important wings on the airplane are on the pilot. Love this quote. We saw that every time we went to recurrent training, right? So anyway, thank you for joining us. Next month, we're going to have Jeffrey Madison. I've talked to him. What a neat guy. He's got the same kind of mission that I have in mind, trying to really get the message out to people to be safe, try to increase safety, giving back to industry. And he's written a book about the 100 smart pilots, the dumb things they did, yet live to talk about them and tell their stories. And the stories are fantastic. So we're going to talk about some of that, and we can learn from the dumb things that other people have done and lived. And we don't have to study it. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you to AVEMCO, Aeronautical Proficiency Training, for producing it, Wings Industry Network for helping with the Wings credit, and the FAA team. And what?
Good night, son.
Good night, Dad. I'm going to go clean my room now. And a special thanks to everybody. Thank you guys for joining us. And we'll do it again next month on the second Thursday of the month on August 14th. Remember, 2 speeds, and good night, everyone.